Excuse me. Um, well, it's me again. Welcome back to me, myself, and I. I figured today I'd kind of talk about uh, kind of the what I had to do when I was a tow truck driver for Grandpa, and we were pretty much uh, at the whim of the road, might as well say. Um, if an accident happened during the night and we didn't need to be there right away, then we'd go get the vehicle in the morning. But there were some times when we had to go get the vehicle at night for mostly forensic, things. Like if there was a body trapped in the vehicle and it was too far over the bank for the rescue people to get it, trapped in the vehicle or something, we'd have to go get the vehicle and pull it up so they could load it into onto a trailer and take it to wherever they need to take it to. I mean, you got to stop and think. This is way before the jaws of life and all the stuff that they have nowadays. And where we lived, I mean, there was places where it was probably 300 feet down to the river. You come around the corner, there's a rock in the road. You hit the rock, it throws you up over the bank, and you go tumbling down the bank, and you crash. And so, sometimes people, would be ejected from the vehicle. Sometimes they wouldn't be found for weeks, months. I got a story about that one that affects me personally, but that'll be for another video. Anyways, but mostly we went and got them during the day. And then there was the cars that broke down during the day. Like I said, rocks were a big problem. Deer, another big problem. People coming down the road, they hit a deer, they hit a big rock, bust their oil pan out, wreck their car, and it couldn't just sit there alongside the road, And since we're pretty much the only tow service in the area, we spent a lot of time hauling cars. Sometimes people would want them back, so we'd take them to their house, and then they paid the tow bill. Or sometimes they didn't want to deal with it, and that's where we got a lot of our cars, because then we'd forgive the tow bill for the vehicle, because not all of them were beyond, and these are fairly, cars that people needed parts for, so we could make our money back on them. But of course, everything has a due process, unless we got the title right away from the people. We had to put them up in the impound yard for 90 days. But anyways, so a few that I remember pretty distinctively. We had we rigged up a wire netting cable system, and we had 3 winches on our tow truck. And they're all run off PTO. And we had the big one winch for hauling the vehicles up out of there with. We had a little one for hauling vehicles and whatnot up with it. And then we had one that we generally, I got lowered down on. And I'd get to where the accident is and arrange it so if we needed the net, then they could pull the one big winch up, and I had a rope tied to it, so then I could hook they hook it to the net up to it. I'd pull it down into the place, and we'd arrange a car to flop over into the net. All depends upon how damaged it was. I mean, because we had to clean everything up too, so there's a lot of times sending the net down was beneficial, because then all the doors and fenders and wheels and tires and everything that got ripped off the car could be loaded back into the net. Then when the net's tightened up, then it could be pulled up all in one shot. And the reason why I was on the third one all the time is because I didn't want to be below the car when it was being towed up the mountain, because we had a few, they got loose and went tumbling back down. Life just happens. But the winch I was attached to was pretty quick, so I could walk up, grab a hold of it, and walk up the mountainside and get off to the side and have them winch it up, pull it up, and put it on the landing, and then I come up around the the way. And so it was a pretty good little system we had going out. But that only happened when probably once a month was mostly it. I told you about the mistake I made about the Avon lady's car. Anyways, but most of them were just right off the road, so we were able to just pull them up real quick and easy. Run down and hook them up. This guy had a Jeep, and he was towing a trailer, and I was told by the sheriff that he had been drinking, and he went off down in, and it wasn't very far. It was only like 50, 60 feet off the road, and it was in a weird place where he come around the corner. He lost control. I guess the trailer fishtailed on him, and he went off the bank. Like I said, it was only about 50 feet, but he was in a Jeep, and there ain't much protection in a Jeep, unless you build it the way it is now. But back then there wasn't that. Just had the roll bar and the fiberglass top. Anyways, it killed him. Well, we had to go get the Jeep out of there and the trailer, but the trailer was full of had two full snap-on tool rolling chests in it, the big ones, and it scattered those tools all over the mountainside going down, and it was all this loose rock gravel like stuff, and so I went down. We got the Jeep out of there. We got the trailer out of there, and we got a lot of the big stuff out. Like I said, we had to clean everything up, and so I'm going from side hill in the mountain. Grandpa let me down to where the gravel started, and I started there. I had a big duffel bag and a rope that was on another winch, and I'd fill up the duffel bag with tools. Then I'd yell at Grandpa, and Grandpa'd pull the duffel bag up and empty it and send it back down to me. It was a big canvas one, like the military uses. But I think ours was more for feeding type. I don't know. Anyways, I pulled like, I don't know. The other weird thing about that was too is I kept finding money, change, quarter here, dimes, nickels, half dollars, silver dollars. So I'm picking those up, and I'm putting those in a different bag because when I started finding them, I was just putting them in my pocket, and I told Grandpa to send me down a small bag, right? So he did, and so when I was picking up the sockets and wrenches and screwdrivers and all this stuff, I was every time I moved, I caused a new avalanche. And every time that avalanche happened, it uncovered something else. And I bet you to this day, you could go there, probably find quarters and change and tools, because you can't get everything when it's that small. Anyway, so we pulled up all these tools. Probably, I think it was a total of like 4 big bags of, um, you know, um, and a bunch of change. I think there was almost like $400 in change. And that was a lot of money back then. But and clothes, I found, I don't know, a couple dozen pair of pants, and there's this pocket money in the pants, like dollar bills, twin 20s, dollar bills, and bunch of and some shirts and all that. Anyways, so we put all that into a big, uh, you know, container, and we put it in the impound lot, and we wrote it down on the inventory, and um, we waited, and we finally hear from the insurance company over it, and they want just a Jeep and the trailer. And when we brought up the rest of it, what they wanted, they said they had no interest in it. It wasn't insured. It just the Jeep and the trailer were. So okay, great. So Grandpa, through his thing, he notifies the next of kin over it, and they're not interested in any of it. I guess he was kind of the black sheep of the family. They wanted nothing to do with it. So out of it all, I got a bunch of tools and a bunch of money because, Grandpa said, man, hell, you can have it all, so I took it all. I used the tools. I had my, shop there at the barn, close to the house. So I put the tools to use and was grateful for it. And then there was other times when, you know, somebody come around the corner, hit a rock, and we'd go get it and tow it to the gas station, and then the mechanics would fix them. Uh, those we did a lot of that. That happened, almost on a daily basis. To be honest with you, there was a stretch of road, probably very close to 20 miles, that they were slowly putting those big metal screens on it. They look like what we use for dog kennels now, um, on the sides of these mountains to keep the rocks from falling, it crashing and you know destroying people's vehicles or even killing people. Yeah, um, and uh, a lot of the accident scenes that happened during the day, that pretty much had to be cleaned up because it had the road closed, so we'd have to go there, like they do now, stop traffic, clean everything up, load it up, take it to the impound lot. And um, so that happened more often than not. Um, it was kind of sad sometimes, because I drove a lot. Because, like in the morning, I'd have to go to the dairy or go to the gas station, or the wrecking yard. The wrecking yard wasn't so bad because it didn't have to be open till 9. The gas station had to be opened at 6, and the dairy you started at 5. So there all depends upon where I was working is what time I was getting up. And so I come around. There are quite a few times on my way to work or from work, you know, because, like I said, I worked a lot. Sometimes I get off work at the dairy and I'd be needed at the gas station, or I'd have to go relieve the guy up at the wrecking yard, or do the garbage dump run with grandpa. So I was always going from one place to another. And I came across a lot of car wrecks too. Um, some of them, the people were just dazed, and confused, and I saved a lot of lives. I got to where I was carrying uh, uh, like 3 blankets and a box of baby diapers and uh, a box of Kotex, um, and electric, electrical tape, because I'd come upon freshly happened accident, and the all depends upon how bad they were bleeding is what they got, and I wrapped arms and limbs and heads and diapers and taped them up, you know, trying to help multiples at a time, a lot of them were just, slight head injuries, hitting their head on the car or steering wheel or something, some of them, broken arms, uh, just acc- you know, things that happen in accidents, glass cuts, um, uh, I never got into I just I did my best to stop the bleeding is all I did. And some of them, they're bleeding real bad. And I truly believe that because I was able to get the compression bandage on there, per se, Kotex or diaper, that it saved their life. They lived, whereas if I hadn't had that stuff, then there was a good chance that they would have bled to death. Um, and the blankets, I usually use those just for respect, cover them. So, and generally when I ran across an accident like that, if the it depended on the variations of the accident, if they were wounded pretty bad, then generally, while I was getting the blood stopped, somebody would come along and I'd send them to the nearest phone, to get an ambulance and whatnot, you know, or just have the sheriff tell them, we need sheriff out here. Um, Now you got to understand something too. I mean, it wasn't like today where you got an ambulance on every corner, you know, that can get to you, in 5-10 minutes. Back then it was an hour before you'd see an ambulance. That was the nearest one. Well, all depends upon where they wrecked was the nearest one. Um, some places were more or less, and there was a lot of squabbling too. You got to understand that because where we lived really close to the county line, um, and because of that, uh, is where the squabbling came in. Sometimes it would be, on this side of the line, but the other county resources were closer, and so. When they were notified that there was an accident and where it was, you know, the it was well, they're in your county, you know, so then you got an hour and a half to wait for an ambulance because that was the county they couldn't cross the county line. It was that's the way things were back then. It was sad but true. Um, Life didn't seem to have a priority per se. And uh, so there was a lot of times where it was up to the people that were either, driving by, stop to help. A lot of times, a lot of people, we'd send the first car off, and then the other cars that stopped would help with the, injuries and whatnot. Sometimes it was just easier just to put them in a car and take them. You know, all depends on how bad they're doing, and if we had a way to transport them safely. Many times I'm riding in the back of a truck, somebody's truck, um, to get them to the hospital, um, and whatnot, and then I have to get a ride back to my vehicle. You know, um, that's why I was so shocked. Um, Not so much at the time, but years later, thinking about it, after all the accidents I had, and a cut above my eye was the worst injury I had. I'm really grateful. Um, I really think I was being looked out on. I think maybe he has bigger plans for me. That's up to him. I'll just let him show me what's right. And anyways, uh, that's what I got for today, and that was kind of what we went through with being a tow truck driver. There was a lot of gory scenes, sadly, a lot of death, but there was also a lot of life saving. There was probably more life saving than there was death. But there were just some that accidents that were just so stupid. I mean, yeah, it just boggles the mind. Like, the one that comes to mind is the 6 unfortunate souls that uh, were riding in a VW bus and come around the corner and hit a rock in the road, and it threw them off the road into a solid rock wall, and it killed all 6 of them. And unfortunately, I was first on the scene on that, and my main priority was to see if anybody was alive and if I could help somebody. And unfortunately, they had passed away, and but just crawling through them to check them, I got covered in blood. And so when I get out of the rig, the first people that show up think I'm a victim. So they come running up to me with their blankets and whatever, and I'm, I, I'm fine. Just leave me alone. Well, we seen you coming out. Are you okay? You okay? What happened? What happened? I don't know, man. Look, I just got here just before you did. I just checked to see if there's any survivors, and the van was pretty mangled. But that's just a kind of, this kind of stupid accidents that happened. It was nobody's fault. It was, the laws of nature, I guess, the best way to put it. Anyways, you guys have a good day. Hope you enjoy my stories. I'm not really doing it for entertainment. I'm mostly doing it for my memories. But I figured somebody might learn something from them. So, anyways, you have a beautiful day and God bless you.